I was so confused. Someone says I always start confused. That's true. I was confused because I was in the wrong StreamYard. I have another link. StreamYard's a tool I use to live stream. I was in the wrong one for a moment. I was like, why is this going to places I don't want it to go? Why are all these boxes checked? And I'm like, oh, that's the StreamYard for another event. Whoops. Anyways, it was set up for a LinkedIn StreamYard. I'm like, why? Well, I thought I published this to my YouTube channel. I was second guessing myself quite a bit. Good news. It is going to YouTube. I was just in the wrong one. So that problem has been resolved. Welcome to Sunday. What is a home lab? Because this is fun. People have some debates about what a home lab is. And I said, I think we can define some things here. Let's get some documentation. And I'm doing a talk on home lab, so I started some documentation on what is a home lab. So let me figure out a way to get that on the screen, because this is a good place to start. Because I get, everyone's got an opinion on things. That's the norm. But let me see here. Share this. My notes inside of LogSeek. That's where I put them. But let's define a home lab. While we're waiting for people to go in, I'm going to do Q&A here and everything else too. So, all that fun stuff. But yeah, the home lab, the challenge first is just defining what a lab is. And I think we have to start there. A lab is a place where you can safely do experiments. And the reason I bring up even in the context of home lab is there are more than one person who tells me 45 Drives home lab isn't home lab at all. And I'm like, well, yes, it is. It's titled home lab. And there are people who build their home labs out of something other than, servers. Because I did put here what a typical home lab includes. Often older servers, desktop, NAS devices, networking gear like switches and firewalls. Often. Doesn't have to. Matter of fact, there are some really, if you spend some time on Reddit, our home lab, I think I have that pulled up somewhere. I'll pull that up next after we go through some defining moments here. But the home lab is really all encompassing. It really depends on where you're at in your career. I'm further along in my career, I guess you could say. So I still have a home lab, and it's fancier because I'm, I've been in tech for a long time. I'm not just getting started. I'm not trying to find my first job in tech. Therefore, I've got a lot of gear to do more advanced things. And that often means you'll have fancier gear and more expensive gear and not just a bunch of used servers. When you're first starting out, oh yeah, definitely there's a lot of used stuff in there. So, the home lab is a place of learning. A home lab is a personal technology environment usually set up in the home, used to test, experiment, and learn about IT infrastructure, software, networking, and security. Think of it as your own private data center or sandbox for hands-on experience. And it depends on what you're trying to learn. So if you're already into your career and you're like, okay, I do all these things here, I want to define something bigger, or I have a experiment that is far bigger. And they were talking about this on 2.5 Admins. I really like that podcast. If you haven't heard it, check it out. They talk a lot about the petabytes of storage. And that is not, I don't think it was quite a petabyte, but they have quite a bit of storage even at their home. And it's just a lot, but that's because they're further along in their careers as well. So as you go along your career, generally speaking, depending on which way you go, I've chose to stay technical. Some people choose to, especially if you're a business owner, they go more into business owner or more into management. I have friends that have moved their way to management, so they don't have any home lab anymore. It's not what they do anymore. They kind of climb the corporate ladder, if you will. They make more money. They seem happy in management. Some people are not. I am not. So that's why I'm, very hands-on with technology, because that's where my happy spot is. But, this is one of those things that, like, the 45 Drives niche, and I did the video on it because I think it's really good hardware. It wasn't me trying to show off like outlandishly expensive hardware. I know there's a lot of people that get excited about some of those things, but it's more about that there are some, for those that can afford it, those that are further along in their career that want some premium stuff. There is a premium option out there. I mean, I suggest all the time for the budget option, hit eBay, hit your local recycler. If you're lucky enough to have a recycling company that sells direct locally, awesome. There's a lot of, I think there's one called, is it Free Geek? I think is another popular one. It's not in all cities, but there are places out there that have pretty good offerings like that. And, used hardware is not a bad way to get started. The mini PCs are a great way to get started because they're lower power, lower noise, and readily available without having to hunt down some used hardware. But I think, people get too caught up and say, oh, every home lab has to be a pile of used random parts pulled out of corporate environments that were tossed away. And I don't think that all defines home lab, especially when you think about people who are doing some real engineering work or just have an open source development background, for example, and they want to dive further into something and they need some horsepower to compile it, to build it, to come up with their idea and test out maybe some software they're doing. Well, then once again, they may still have a home lab where they do it, because if you're not getting paid for it, especially, and you're just experimenting, well, open source people are a lot like that just have projects that are kind of there, scratch the itch, have some fun projects. But I think people get really caught up on this entire what is or isn't a home lab, and whether or not something like the 45 drives equipment even qualifies as home lab. But I mean, to me, it does. It's not the cheapest offering, but it's a pretty good one. And then someone had a couple suggestions for other cases for me to look at. And I actually have another company, Canadian one too, building NAS systems. I'll be doing a review pretty soon for their equipment. They're one of the next ones I'll be looking at. It's not going to be the same case quality that you get from 45 drives, but there are some decent systems out there. And I get a lot of people don't necessarily want to go the full DIY route. That's perfectly fine. You just want to be able to buy something because you care about the NAS, not about the building of the NAS, because you're more into the software on it. And that's why I said it's not like you have to define yourself of it's only a home lab if it was built out of scrap. It's just kind of a fun, yeah. And some people like this is, just enjoy doing the hobby. I know it seems like in any hobby, there are folks that get a little bit too pedantic. Completely. And I don't mind this. I got a DM from someone today because I've been posting more about in the motorcycle forums. I made a typo. I said my Honda was a 2023. Got a DM 15 minutes after I posted a picture of it in the new members part of the forum that someone says that's a 2022 or late model 2021, and then had the details of exactly why. And I was like, you're absolutely right. I typoed. I didn't, wasn't quality checking before I posted I own a 2022 Honda, not a 2023. So you're right. For any hobby, there are definitely people who are it's funny because I'm going to say that they're the same person, so to speak. The person that would absolutely correct you that you posted a picture of something technology wise and will correct you about some very obscure detail about it that you may have gotten wrong. And in the Honda forums, if you're not into the Honda trail motorcycles, you wouldn't recognize a 2021 versus a 2022 versus 2023. But those in the hobby are like immediately, no, Tom, you said that was a 2023. That is clearly a 2022 or late model 2021 built between these dates and have the details and the why. Yeah. Actually doesn't just apply to computers. Actually is a thing. Actually, I actually really like that meme. Trying to figure out when your company is upgrading infrastructure and make friends, IT team. Maybe I'll give them my stuff. Just got a TP-Link 10 gig 8 port switch and 48 port. Yeah, you can make friends if you work for one of these companies, figure out what they're doing with the old stuff and see if you can acquire it. Definitely not a bad idea. My home lab started off with mini PCs, and I think I'll continue using them as long as I'm home labbing. Yeah, I really think the last few years, the mini PCs have come out, and it's probably going to really hurt used server sales because I mean, there are differences, and maybe I should make a video on this topic so people have better understanding of what those differences are. But generally speaking, you can get away with these mini PCs pretty easily. They're not going to have the redundancy. They don't have the dual power supplies. They don't have the industrial design that was meant to be running for the next 10 years without being turned off. Granted, those are all advantages on the big server, but they use like 1/10 often or even less of the wattage and provide really good performance and are very affordable and way less noisy. And of course, with less wattage comes less heat. So yeah, you got to weigh those pros and cons, and the mini lab stuff is shockingly good. And with the modern software, it's not hard to build resiliency by having a few mini PCs. Granted, that of course makes the price go up quite a bit, but resiliency is easy now. My friend Radal just released a video about a 3-node Proxmox cluster. You can do that. He did it with 3 HL4s from 45 drives. Absolutely, you can build these clustered systems like that for really reasonable prices. Mini PCs, TV5, Oculink are going to be game changers. Yeah, as these mini PCs get faster connections on them, absolutely. Yeah. Broadcom done a massive U-turn. Yeah, Broadcom did the U-turn here, but on the other side of it, I think they burned the community so bad. Everyone's like, I'm not going there. How long is it free for? Until you screw me over again? I think that's where the community feels about it. 100% agree. I fully embrace the mini micro Homelab using 2 mini Swarms S100s in my cluster, which has been as cool as they are. PoE switched, you can power them. Yeah. One of the interesting things too is the rise of all the Raspberry Pi clusters for people that just go, I just have these services that happen to also run in Docker that run across a Pi. And without even going full Kubernetes, you can do things like Docker Swarm, a much simpler configuration, and go, oh, look, this works. And get things done you want. So it's absolutely I've debated myself because I don't really use a lot of horsepower in my home lab outside of when I'm, maybe doing some demos. I've thought about turning off most of my home lab stuff when I'm not between videos just to save the wattage and using a mini PC because my usual daily driver stuff runs fine on a mini PC, like more than fine. The only thing I have to keep running all the time is my NAS because I record all my videos on it. So the NAS systems have to stay running to synchronize and back up and blah, blah, blah. But the mini PC is enough for all the little things that I run. Setting up my home lab, having fun as they go along in a Proxmox as well to reduce the number of systems, hosting my own unified portal. How easy to set up a home lab FTP server? How would you approach it? I would not use an FTP server in 2025. So I would approach it by looking for an alternative to FTP. Not sure what you're trying to do with FTP, but I don't recommend anyone be using FTP here in the year 2025. So start with what are you trying to solve with FTP and start looking at alternative solutions. Something else I'll pull up to. I got to reply to the person because they were asking this question, but I was pulling up some of the temperatures and this is one last comment on the 45 drives thing. Let me stop sharing, present, share screen. People in 45 drives does a lot of testing, by the way, but people were complaining about one person and someone else commented they're complaining about the heat in the 45 drives HL series, but I have not experienced that. I have the same comments on the 45 drives XL60. There's people who told me the XL60 cannot cool that many drives. And I'm like, I literally have sold, I don't know, 4 to 5 petabytes to a client. No, 3 petabytes to one particular client with all XL60s. And every one of them is working fine, and the drive temperatures are completely normal. I've not really had any problems with the drive temperatures in those 45 drives. And 45 drives does a lot of their own internal testing to validate that the airflow is adequate for the drives that go in these. And they're all 7,200 RPM drives, so I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up because I was testing that, replying to comments this morning just before I started this live stream. I mean, 45 drives has been on top of all this stuff like by quite a bit. Anyways, Dell 7090s what I use for my home lab. I can get the 7070s for $50, the 7090s for $100 from local source. They work great for my home lab. Yeah, I like some of the leader PCs as well. Those, my friend has a I don't have a picture of it. He's got to get me a better one anyways. He took several of those 1-liter PCs and 3D printed a holder for him and put them in his rack. It actually is pretty cool. And he built a cluster of XCP&G systems that way. And I was like, that's actually really clever. The micro-K8s RPA cluster and unified network NAS are part of the home production. Cool. Yeah, the micro-K8s is a popular project as well. Yeah, that is a challenge. Getting things places costs a lot of money. And in the current turbulent environment of we don't know what it will cost because of potential import taxes, it makes it even harder. So, yeah, I feel you on that. It'd be cool if Dell, Lenovo, or HP would start making a high core count laptop chips with i9 processor. Uh, high laptop chips, laptop chip NAS. Okay. You know, I it's kind of a strange market that the demand is pretty good. I mean, there's definitely some sales margin and quantity margins in these small NAS systems. And it's kind of weird to me that the big companies don't get involved more in that. I guess they're just leaving opportunity on the table for other companies to come in there and do it. I mean, I look at what 45 Drives is doing, especially contributing to open source, having the chassis, et cetera, all the things that they're doing, and going, it's all a lot of common sense stuff. It's stuff that a lot of people have been doing piece by piece, and 45 Drives offering it as a full solution is pretty awesome. You know, 45 Drives works with a lot of large publicly traded companies doing this that they can't necessarily talk about. And it's, I've learned a lot hanging out with the people at 45 Drives, becoming friends with them and going to their building. I talk with them on the regular, and it's interesting. I mean, we've supplied a lot of people in the automotive space with 45 Drives hardware, and it's being used all over the place. You undoubtedly, the audience here, have watched movies that have been edited, processed, color graded, one of the steps of the movie production cycle on a 45 Drive server. They are absolutely huge in the movie industry, and there's a lot of them. We have several movie customers and, working in that industry. So 45 Drives is like a bit becoming bigger than I would say some of the usual suspects in that area. The usual storage servers are not winning bids anymore because movies have gotten bigger. Storage servers by these big companies have gotten convoluted and overpriced, and 45 Drives they're not playing the same game. There's so much powerful Homelab worthy NASAs and workstations coming out this year. But the prices may be scary. Yeah, it depends on a lot of things. Something else though, and I thought this was kind of fun, and maybe I don't know if it's a dedicated video, but it's certainly fun to share and talk about here with all of you. I like doing things in real time. But Linus had gone through some of the Homelab things, and I seen he posted a video on it. I don't usually watch me and Linus's videos, but if there's somewhere, this is Reddit or Homelab. I do like the top post because it lets us know that this MikroTik is dishwasher safe, which to me is hysterical. Like that's its own level of funny. I don't know that anyone's actually tested this, but if you have, allegedly, it's dishwasher safe. But when you start looking at the Homelab as people define it, there's a lot of things in here that, like, this is at someone's house. They built all this, they put all this together. They've even got their storage server here. I mean, this is a pretty impressive setup. I like it. They got the mini split right here. If you haven't used one of these, they're pretty cool for looming the cables and making them really nice. I like it because it was purpose built. Like, it looks like they were building this all along when they were building the house. So there's some really cool setups on there. Of course, everyone, the IKEA lab rack, it happens to be the right size. I'm an old Xeon XE520. A V4 has 40% less single thread rated and Snapdragon Gen 2. In my Homelab, I have a P330 ThinkStation approach, can do with any tiny. I think it's fun when people grab a bunch of old laptops and they all have their own batteries in them. So you can actually build your own quiet mini cluster of laptops. I've seen people like with, a few of them set up, and I'm like, that's actually kind of a novel Homelab. I do like spending time on Reddit Homelab. I'm always impressed with all the nice, you work with what you got, and some people have a small space and they build a really nice setup. Like, this is clean. That's just really nicely done there. I mean, the microwave PC is funny. This is more of a PC build than a Homelab build, but it's novel. Who doesn't love a cat in the rab? That's a nice little clean setup. See, 3D printing for these little small PCs and turning them into your little Homelab, I think is actually pretty clever. It's a nice approach. I love going here for ideas. There's no doubt. That's okay. I mean, yeah, I guess that's a thing. Unify plays its corporate games, we play ours. I got some respect for that. Make this bigger. Oh, there we go. That looks kind of nice. Made it too big. How? I'm assuming you're talking about this Unify one because that's a sight to see. There's a lot of comments on this. I can't resist. What are the comments on this? Wait, it's not possible to open a housing at all. You just have to cut into it. I do the same rather than buy a tray. Just wondering what the case open on. Yeah, it's very hard to open, and knowing me, I would damage some components underneath during opening. So Monkey Me said, cut. Fair. This is the the comments. I forgot to share them. Okay, that's funny. Oh man. But there's a lot. Like I said, the Homelab defines these mini racks are actually pretty cool. This isn't a mini rack. This is just someone 3D printing a mini version of their setup. That's cute. There's a new Raspberry Pi setup. No, you spend some time in here and you can kind of get some ideas. Some people build some clever things. It's all about what fits yours. I'm actually looking for a particular post in here. There is someone who has a pretty wild Homelab. Oh, here's someone with a Homelab with a pair of the 45 drive Homelabs in it. So apparently it does belong in there. Yeah, I think eventually someone would make a 3D printed tray for the Unify as well. Read the questions out loud so you can mow the lawn? Sure. I mean, if you have enough circulation, you can put a countertop over the top of it. It's all about circulation. There's actually someone, let me find it really quick. So this was really clever. Someone built a hidden Homelab. Let me see if I can find a picture of it, because I just, thanks, Reddit. I think it was in the past week, maybe. Or not. Sometimes there's so many things get posted here, they're hard to find. Past month. This one. This is just clever. So let me go here. Someone decided to hide their Homelab, and I think that's a neat idea. So they're built a whole bookshelf in the corner here. They have venting on it to let the heat out. I'm assuming it's adequate. I don't know. But yeah, it's just a shelf that swings in place. They even have a little lock so you can't just swing it open. But hidden Homelab behind the bookshelf. Yeah, it's clever. Definitely clever. but so many things to look at. What gives feeling? This is definitely the people in the audience for this. What gives people feelings of power, money, status, having a full rack at home? Absolutely. Oh, look, and the next picture below with a lot of upvotes, of course, is a picture of a rack filled with all the equipment. Listen. All right. I think I've looked at enough of the. Oh, there's a cool one. More of the 3D printed with the little think centers in there. Well, that's cool with all the cards in it. There we go. All right. Stop looking at these. On to the next topic. They need a Zigbee button that automatically opens the hidden Homelab. That would be cool. Put a little automated swing open on it. I think that'd be pretty neat. I could definitely deal with that. What do we need? Let me sign into my 45 drives HL server. Any day now, any day, we are going to have the new version of TrueNAS. It's at RC1. I'm going to keep checking. I think the 15th is the scheduled release date. As far as I know, it's on track. I got to keep up with the latest version or latest updates from their the IX Systems podcast. If you haven't subscribed to that, great podcast, good insights. They share a lot of good information about how development goes, and I want to catch up because they have another developer on there that dives into it. So let me find it real quick in case any of you haven't seen it. I haven't listened to it yet, so the TrueNAS podcast. Drop a link in here. But their latest episode, deep dive into Incas containers. Oh, I didn't listen to this one either. And this one, pre-release Rumble, Fangtooth hotfixes, history, and viewer mail. So yeah, they've been dropping a lot of good knowledge. I like hearing from Chris talking about the details, some of the development stuff, and like why they made the choices they made. I think that's where it gets really interesting, is understanding why do developers do what they do, because so many people are mad about any breaking change, but sometimes someone said it best. I like breaking changes because I know it means there's progress, but I hate when it affects me. That's really the sum it all up for us. I mean, breaking changes are part of doing these upgrades. It's part of when you want the product to be better, you want it to do the thing in the future you hope it does. Breaking changes, unfortunately, very much so, are part of it. You're like, we're going to have to just, rip this out. And I know a lot of people get mad about it, but it is what it is. Yeah, I see a lot of people talking about the 10-inch racks. I think it's just a trend of the popularity of low power, lower cost, lower space in overall. Like, it gets, not everyone has, for example, a big basement like I do to put their Homelab in, or like the earlier Homelab I was just showing where someone was clearly building a new house and made a section for their servers. And some people, especially if you live in a area that just doesn't have a lot of square footage, or you don't have the opportunity to have that square footage, I think the mini Homelabs are a really cool option. And go, cool, I can still learn a lot of this advanced stuff. I can still play with it all, and I can do it for less space, less cost. And, it's kind of cool looking too with the mini Homelab stuff. You're hoping to see more progress on low power home compute solutions, but I fear that the cost basis of the Raspberry Pi 5 has made the ThinkStation and other 1 liter factor PCs looking more cost effective. Yeah, maybe. Any thoughts on the now free VMware thing? Yeah. So my problem is with VMware, is they realized that people weren't as sticky as they thought they were. We've done a lot of transitions of getting people off of VMware, we move them over to XCP&G, and VMware goes, "Uh-oh, now what? Oh crap, this sucks. We thought we could just, screw everybody over." And they would just sit there and take it and just have to pay the license fees. And a lot of people did. A lot of people just paid the increased license fees. But when they realized enough people were leaving, they said, well, we better do something. And I think once you burn the trust with the community, a lot of the community is like, I don't care if it's free. It's only free until to get you to lock in again. It's like a temporary free thing. Oh crap, I started charging an arm and a leg for this. So, I guess I have to give it to you for free for a little while. How long? Well, just until we think you're locked in. Once you're locked in, we're going to do it again. I mean, why would you believe us if we told you we weren't? Because once a company goes down that path and decides screwing over their clients and destroying the community is the way, what's the likelihood that they're going to change your mind on it? I mean, they might temporarily because the shareholders told them to, but the shareholders, once they think they have enough market lock-in, they just play the game again. This is one of the reasons open source, I think, is going to be such a bigger player in the future. You look at Europe right now, and it's all these private equity firms, honestly. I mean, Broadcom, you can say, is a tech company, but they're a tech company, they're mostly, as far as I'm concerned, just like any of these other private equity firms. Buy it, squeeze it, throw it away. That's the private equity firm way. Red line must go up, and red line must go up at all cost. There's no long-term thinking. There's only short-term gains. It has caused havoc across the tech industry and will continue to do so. That's one of the reasons I see Europe as a rising star overall. You look at projects, Proxmox, XCP&G, where the two biggest virtualization replacement platforms come from. Europe. They're absolutely, in the right place at the right time, doing things the right way, going, hey, let's do some open source things. So I think that's going to be a big trend we see over the next few years with these companies that seem to have only one thing in place. Security Now, Steve Gibson was talking about this and talking about people leaving SQL Server because Microsoft keeps changing their licensing and squeezing people. And Microsoft's assuming they have the monopoly on it. And they do have one hell of a monopoly. They're a multi-trillion-dollar company because of the way they lock in people. So this is one more place that people are going, why don't we look at open source? Why don't we look at doing things back? That's one of the reasons I celebrated 45 Drives. 45 Drives isn't just embracing open source. They're contributing back to it. They're not just taking it and going, hey, cool, open source makes us an affordable NAS solution. No, they actively participate in the open source community. They actively develop and contribute code back. They are involved deeply in the Ceph market and not just deploying it, but giving you scripts to help you deploy it and giving that all away on their GitHub. We're seeing like a big convergence of massive amounts of storage companies that are going, yeah, open source might be the way, IX Systems, 45 Drives, and other companies getting in on it. Companies like myself that sell it as a solution, and me getting into arguments on LinkedIn with someone who sells, I think it was NetApp. That person really wasn't happy with me. And they were trying to tell me that 45 Drives wasn't open source. And I was like, I don't understand what you're talking about. He was mad because I told him, no, I wouldn't do a review of their, I'm pretty sure it was NetApp. This is a little while ago on LinkedIn. It just made me laugh the back and forth. But I think there's a massive opportunity, not just in storage and virtualization, but eventually operating systems. Microsoft is force obsoleting systems that aren't obsolete. There was, if I can find it, I think it was on like It's Voss or one of those. There was a good article about a city that moved to open source and how they're running computers that are what Microsoft far considers end of life, but they use spreadsheets on it. Computer does perfectly fine with the spreadsheets 8 years later because it's a city that does basic things that cities do. Cities don't necessarily on all systems. Maybe they do have some faster ones, but like the people doing clerk things, if you will, the processing of basic stuff. Like we're going to enter some forms. We're going to print off a new city permit form and all this basic stuff. You don't need a new computer every 3 years for that. You don't need a computer every 5 years for that. But Microsoft is like, you know what? We think Windows 11 means you must have new computer. Why? Well, the operating system. As a matter of fact, when you look at some of the things on the workloads of clerical work, especially, the heaviest thing on the computer is Windows. Nothing else needs that much to run except for Windows. Because turns out, well, I mean, if you're using Microsoft Office, it's also bloated as well. But for a lot of this basic functionality, and I think that's where I'm hoping to see the next push is to start to see operating systems move away of being always based on Windows. And I think part of what enables that to make it easier is the fact that so many things are web applications. Cool. We just punch numbers into a website to now process these permits, pay the water bill, pay basic functions like that, or any clerical work that might be done, and makes it a lot easier. But I'll get off my soapbox for a minute. Spot on about VMware and Broadcom. Don't fall for it. Yeah. Stopped using ESXi when they stopped supporting perfectly good servers. That could not be updated to the next version. Yeah, and that's a whole nother thing VMware did. People seem surprised that XCP-ng or Proxmox will run on the old hardware or the new hardware. And I'm like, yeah, it works. Why wouldn't it? And it's artificial for them to force obsolete something. They're like, oh no, it will not run no longer on this hardware with the new version. We've decided it doesn't need to. And I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. With TrueNAS Scale being able to have applets of VMs, how do you decide what can be a container of VM and when should you make a separate server? Home Assistant, Home Security, Nextcloud. One of my videos I've had that has been a lot is the people asking me to do new videos on Nextcloud. My problem is I've done 2 or 3, and it seems to keep breaking every update because they change it. I don't recommend Nextcloud because it's so many breaking changes in TrueNAS. If you run Nextcloud in a VM, it seems to work fine, but it seems to have breaking changes in there. So it's kind of a back and forth of, I don't know. You have to kind of pick each application and say, are there breaking changes? Does this application work good on TrueNAS? Right now, and not until later this year, you can't even select what IP address your application goes on. So if that's the requirement, you got to throw TrueNAS Scale as a place to run those applications right out the door. You can't use it for that. Now, there are ways to do it from the command line. There's ways to do it not through the UI, but of course, that means they're not necessarily going to survive the updates that come through. So it starts with the selection of, I want to run this application. Does this application have to have a dedicated IP address? Does it need to have its own ports that would conflict with other applications on there? Maybe it should run on its own thing. I have a Docker VM that is where all of my Docker things live, and it's running an XCP-ng. I do not run that Docker VM inside of TrueNAS because why? I just connect all my data to TrueNAS. And I have a couple applications like SyncThing that I run in TrueNAS, but I don't need to run everything on TrueNAS. So majority of my Docker apps live in a virtual machine just called Docker. It's just an easy place to run it. Running Nextcloud on TrueNAS and have had no breaking changes in over a year. You're lucky because the video I did, there are some changes to permissions that occurred. I believe I have to look at when I did my TrueNAS video, but I know my TrueNAS video is now inaccurate because of the new changes they made. So that's why people are complaining on that video, and I don't know if I should just take it down. It actually, you just have to figure out what those permission changes are from when I did the video. And because I did the video, I know I have to do the video again, and you can do like an A/B comparison going, oh, that's not the setting anymore. It's not that my video is wrong. It's that the changes occurred. It's one of those things like, it reminds me of when you look at games on Steam. Overall review is really good on this. Recent reviews really bad. Well, the recent reviews are bad because the recent is when they made breaking changes. And sometimes upgrades just don't go well in Nextcloud. And I don't really know why. That seems to be mostly in TrueNAS. I'm sure I remember there's an install script. Jay from Learn Linux TV has a video on it. I've tested a long time ago. That version of Nextcloud works fine. So you've had it break as well. Okay. Even in their own. Interesting. Oh, what's going to really change in the market over the years, and you're going to watch companies do this. You're going to watch young companies that go, yeah, let's embrace the new, and old companies going, we've always done it this way. And those always done it this way companies are eventually going to find out going, why can't we compete with our competitors? Well, sir, we have decided Microsoft needs almost 30% of our IT spend, and Citrix needs another 30%, and Broadcom took the other budget. What about people? We don't have money for those anymore. The license fees now are so high. Why are they so high? Well, apparently one guy's yacht wasn't as big as the other guy's yacht, and we had to endure higher license fees because it's not about software anymore. It's about who's got the biggest yacht. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's, it's not that I don't mind at all people getting paid for their work. Completely fine with it. I'm not someone who's thinking we need some weird society without money. I mean, it's a cool concept in Star Trek, but I don't know how to make that reality happen here. But some of these companies, like Microsoft, definitely being among the people that are in the how many yachts can we have club. It's not about software anymore. It's about how many yachts they can have. It's not about paying even the developers. It's the people at the top collecting yachts. It's not about the people actually, putting their fingers on the keyboard, writing the software. Yeah, it's the number go up for the only reason that number go up. Number must go upright all times, no matter what. It was a paperclip game where the only solution is to turn the entire universe into paperclips, pretty much. Because the people at 45 Drives, they're charging a lot, but they're also not outsourcing things to third world countries to be made in sweatshops. They're actually building their stuff in Nova Scotia in a factory there. And it's interesting to see that it can be done, and it does cost more, but it's also a premium product. They're not trying to build the cheapest system out there, kind of what I was talking about earlier. Hello from Berlin. I'm also still trying to figure out a way to run Nextcloud reliably, replace OneDrive for my personal use. Yeah, my suggestion right now is run it in a virtual machine and follow Jay from Linux TV. I believe has a really good setup guide on it. I've been told it's good. It's been a while since I looked it up, but it's way more stable than running it in TrueNAS. The number one thing to do in Nextcloud is learn to back it up and redeploy it. Yes, all the time. What are your thoughts on ruckus switches and access points? So if I'm not mistaken, and someone correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the only way to get ruckus is through a reseller, and they have a bunch of licensees attached to it. Like I found, like I don't understand the way ruckus licensing works. So maybe someone who can explain it. So I've never used them much. I don't know anything good or bad about them. But anytime a company has a confusing like purchasing process, I kind of don't like them as much. So I guess this is their site. And I don't think they have any pricing because you got to find a partner, how to buy. So everything is, ruckus, you got to find a partner. You have to find a program level badge. And then you got to pay the markup of a middleman. This is where Unify, people ask why Unify is so popular. Unify goes, crazy, insane idea here. We have a website. We can sell things to people. And 45 Drives is doing the same thing. When you buy from 45 Drives, you're buying from 45 Drives. And Unify's idea to go, what if we eliminate all licenses and just sold direct to people? Would the humans buy from us? Or don't they require middlemen to have at least a 35% markup and a convoluted sales program? And surely there's no way to sell direct to the people that might want the product. And Unify is worth, let's look at their current, I know market cap isn't everything. It's about what the market thinks of them. But what's Unify's market cap right now? Ubiquity's market cap. Oh, the market's really took it down for them. They were over 20. Now they're at $18 billion. $18 billion. That's an incredible number. All with this idea of what if we sold directly to people without reseller programs? So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that's so many of these companies want to come up with complicated licenses, reseller programs, because that's the way it's always been done. We must have middlemen who, you know, put markups on the middle, but I just want to buy the product. I know what product I want. I just want to buy it. We can't just sell it to you. This person over here had to go through a whole reseller process and they're going to make 25% more on you. Okay. Why? Well, because that's how the system works. There's not any way we can think of working differently. I will say this about Nextcloud. It's a little bit cumbersome. Yeah. I've used it on and off for years. And I actually like local documents better still. If I'm editing a document, I don't know. I haven't liked the web documents enough. So yeah. I recommend having Nextcloud in the VM, take a snapshot, lock the system out so no one uses it, try upgrade. If it fails, revert back to the snapshot. Yes, that would be the way I'd recommend running Nextcloud. I don't spend a ton of time in documents either. So that's also like, I don't do as much document editing as I used to. But Nextcloud, it's a mixed bag for sure. I'm still using Synology Drive for the couple personal documents I have just because I want to keep testing it. I will say Synology Drive is very reliable. I know it's not open source and it ties you to Synology, and I completely acknowledge that. But I actually more often will use a lot of local applications. I still use LibreOffice, for example. LibreOffice and Sync Thing is still my favorite. Because you know it's never broke? LibreOffice and Sync Thing. Just I can't name the last time I had a problem with any of those. Yeah, there's a lot of those companies that get into reselling it, and they'll become the construction company is part of the reseller, so they'll mark it up quite a bit and put it in there. You know how many IT companies I know, their only reason for not selling Unify, the customer knows the price. I can't make any money on it. That's their answer. They're like, I can't sell things that customer knows the price on because I can't mark it up 30%. That's like that's why they hate Unify. Quantum computing is coming fast. In your opinion, what is going to be the best way to keep them cool? I have no idea how to keep a quantum computer cool. Actually, don't they only work at a certain really low temperature anyways? Gonna try GrandStream Wi-Fi 6 AP soon, just waiting in stock from a company I ordered from. Do you use Home Assistant with Unify? I do not. I just haven't had any need. Eventually I might move to, no, I won't say eventually. I'm eventually going to move to the Unify camera system, and then I will do an integration, because currently I have my Home Assistant integrated with my cameras, but this is Synology. But once I move to Unify, I will integrate Home Assistant with my Unify cameras. Hey, Tom, we have a Unify wireless running an old HP desktop. I spun up a bunch of VM, installed the Unify controller on it. What's the best way to migrate to the new controller? They have a migration tool. I did a video a number of years ago on it. I could probably do another one because the interface has changed, but it works the same way. And I know more people have done videos on how to migrate Unify. It's really easy to migrate from one to the other. Now, if you don't want to migrate, you can back up and restore and give it the same IP address, and that will work as well. And you don't have to do a migrate at that point. Greetings. I was pricing out custom armored direct burial SMF on various sites. A 40-meter 8-strand armor direct barrel is $165. Yeah, there's local place that we deal with that we buy it from. They'll make any length we want. So yeah, I'm not sure if you have a question in there, but we do that type of work sometimes when we need to. TrueNAS on an old Fujitsu server. I got 6 SATA ports bays with 2x1 TB drives mirrored. Was the cheapest way to add drives. Performance not an issue, just max the storage. I mean, if you already have 2x drives mirrored, you can keep adding more mirrors. That's probably, it's not the most Mirrors are not the most storage efficient, but you can get good performance out of mirrors. Are you still using MediaWiki to maintain internal IT documentation? Now, you made a few videos a while back. Curious, still in use. Try to get my IT to adopt it more. I do not. And when I sold the company, that section of the company, so I still own part of CNWR, but when I did the merger, some things were just the tools they use. And because I'm not the one maintaining or controlling that anymore, nor do I want to be, that is completely by my choice. They are using a tool called Hoodoo. That's what they were using. That's what they wanted to continue to use. So we do not use the MediaWiki, but the MediaWiki is still a solid place to use for documentation, in my opinion. Hoodoo is much more structured than a MediaWiki. Hoodoo's a commercial product. It's actually not that expensive. It's HUDU. If you type in Hoodoo, HUDU, IT documentation, you'll find their site. I'm using my Synology NAS for storage, of course, but also love their backup for business. Backup all of my machines and VM and on ESXi. I wish you would have Proxmox backup to business. Yeah, I don't see them doing that, but maybe they'll add it in the future. I don't know. You're testing your PF Sense before upgrading. You're doing speed tests and wireless and wired. Should I expect to change these numbers once I put it in as the main router? I mean, not necessarily. If you're not having, it depends on what router you have. So, I mean, if you're replacing if the PF Sense is a more performant router than the one you have, then there's going to be some speed changes. Testing PF Sense, upgrading the WAN connect to my ISP router. Yeah. My biggest contract relies heavily on Google Drive. Do I break everything and migrate to Nextcloud? I don't. I still use Google Drive for that reason. So my problem with Nextcloud is maintaining security is possibly iffy, and I don't want to risk it. I have too much documents. Google, for all their faults and all their problems that were probably completely valid arguments you could have about Google, them being an awful company, them doing terrible things, them not being privacy oriented. I'll agree with you 100% on that. Unfortunately, Google is where I share my documents from for businesses when we're collaborating. Been doing it for a long time. It's somewhere, it's kind of expected. Either you're going to use Google or Microsoft. So I still have a Google account for my business that we use for sharing those documents. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people like Hoodoo. It's more structured. The problem with the wiki is it's unstructured. Giving humans without really solid training and help to keep them doing things structured, you'll eventually hire more people that do things in a very unstructured way, and your wiki will become very unstructured. So yeah, that's a challenge. Hoodoo keeps people kind of like, hey, these are the things you do. Do the new unified firewalls allow for setting up gateways as certain clients on the network? Setting up gateways, each client on the network goes to ISP2 and rescuing. You can do policy routing. So I think I'd have to look at how they offer. I don't know that they're really fine grained on that. I don't know that I'm trying to think of the policy routing rules will allow for that level of control, like send this over WAN too. That's a maybe. I'd have to double check that. Now they might do it in 9.1. I'm not positive they do it in 9.0, but I think they have a lot more routing options coming in 9.2. My question on direct barrier fires asks if it's a good price. I don't know if it's a good price. I haven't looked at the price of that in 5 or 6 years because I don't do pricing. I haven't done pricing even before the merger. Wasn't my task. So I can't really answer that question. Any thoughts on Synology finally embracing 2.5 gig? Seems late, but the cost of 10 gig connectivity on the 2025, I don't know. Nice that they're finally embracing it. Synology just is slow on the hardware refresh. They go for ultra reliable hardware. The nice thing about Synology is they got a really reasonable support cycle lifetime on their devices. And even though their hardware is not fancy, it's really, really reliable. So I'll hats off on reliability. And I think that's the trade-off. Downside is you're not going to get 2.5 gig right away. MediaWiki is great. People already struggle with a Nextcloud upgrade. If then MediaWiki is a whole different level. Yeah, I never had too many issues with MediaWiki upgrades. They have a process for it, but it involves the command line, so it's not for the faint of heart. If you just want one click press upgrade and get new version, MediaWiki is not for you. Occasionally, you even have to change the what do you call it? Oh, there's that. You got to update a couple of things in the config file when they deprecate it. So, I mean, I didn't find it that hard, but then again, that's me. I'm someone who's very experienced at this. If you're a noob at it, then yeah, you're definitely, if you're not used to how that upgrade goes. But there's also like Bookstack and a few other wiki tools out there. There's some good wiki software out there. XWiki, Bookstack are both very popular and I believe have better update processes. Yeah, just because it's in the cloud doesn't mean you don't back it up. So absolutely, I back up all of my Google, all of it, every single day. Because Google, under the certain, it was a really weird edge case, but it happened. And I forget what the circumstance was. I think it had to be people using Google Drive and it would purge a bunch of their stuff. So yeah, people lost data. And that was a crazy. Now, figuring out why it happened, I believe, came down to Google Drive, but also was very unclear at the time. So when you hear about your Google Drive docs missing, you are extremely nervous about that from the get-go. Someone's Google Docs missing. Are mine missing? What does this mean? Suggest a video on everything SSL for Homelab. I don't know what you'd want in that video. I already have one on HA proxy. I have one on troubleshooting SSL, and I have one on using Nginx proxy manager. So what is the gap that I'm missing there? We have to clean up and restructure some parts in our Confluence wiki every few years, no matter how good the process is. Eventually, it always turns to a junkyard. Confluence explodes on, I don't know, interaction. No, I have a friend that used to work for a company. I didn't realize this was a thing. Their only job was updating Confluence for people because of how broken it was, especially if they had any plugins. That was their specialty. They just updated Confluence for people, which I was like, that's legit. And he's just like, yeah, it's just breaks all the time. But once you get good at updating it, you know exactly what's going to break. But it breaks so often, most companies will just not update it to the latest version because it keeps breaking. If I change my network to 2.5 gigs without changing my old hard drives, will I gain performance on my NAS? That depends. You may not be. It depends on how many drives are in your NAS and what performance. So you have to do some calculations. Or like, hey, how fast does my NAS perform? Is my bottleneck the drives or is it the networking? At 10 gig, very frequently spinning Rust drives, the HDDs, are very frequently going to be the bottleneck. If you have SSDs, well, maybe not. But HDDs, they could be. But if you have enough of them, they can saturate at 10 gig. If you have like the XL60s that we have, the 45 drive, 60 base servers, you set them up with a bunch of VDEVs, you can actually create a very, very performant system. Even my Homelab, Q30, the production one we have that backs up all my videos, that's a very high performance system with 30 hard drives in it. Hey, Tom, I just got my first TrueNAS chassis online. Would it be best for wait for the official 2504 before I start deploying my apps out there? Given a change is coming, wasn't sure if I should. I would go ahead and move if you want to the release candidate. The app breakage that could occur will occur, I believe they said June 1st, but I don't know how much breakage will be out there. I would go ahead and, I mean, honestly, I've had so much stability with the release candidate and I've had no problems with it. So if you're already running the stable version and you know that your NAS is stable, as in it's not crashing or causing problems, I would go ahead and, because we're only days away from the release, or just wait a couple more days and wait till the full release is out of the release candidate to start setting up your apps. I've got BGP working between 3 data centers running over WireGuard. Problem is, I want diverse routing, but WireGuard allowed IPs conflicts, calls routing loop. Any suggestions or shall I bin WireGuard? It's probably not the solution for what you want. Yeah, do something that's not WireGuard, because there are some limitations to how that will work, because this was a discussion about WireGuard lacking a few integrations, if you will, for better routing. What are your opinions on Grandstream routers? A new GCC range seems to offer a good alternative to Unify for less bucks. I don't know. I don't think they're feature comparison of them, and I don't know what their pricing is, because one of the challenges is Grandstream sells to resellers. So I don't know how to do. Can you find pricing on these? So here's their page. I don't know one model from another with them. Contact sales. Huh. Supports gigabit, built-in VPN. Supports protocol monitoring traffic statistics, QoS. I don't know. Are they feature comparison? And I have no idea what they cost. See, this is what's annoying. Like, where do we find prices for them? Are they on Amazon? They have these ones, it looks like, for $57. Where else do we buy these from? VoIP Supply sells them. So this model is like 55. So this is the challenge. Like, what do they cost? You have to go from different resellers to find them. Unify in their insane way they sell direct to make life simple. Crazy. Yeah, Hoodoo you can use for customer documentation. You can also do integration with Hoodoo to auto document things. You can tie it in with several other services to pull information and populate it. I really get notification of a rogue AP broadcasting my Wi-Fi SSD. Each time I follow the MAC address, it points to one of my own APs, more often mesh. All this on Unify, by the way. Any ideas? I've never seen that happen on Unify when it's properly set up. So no, I don't have. Anytime I've had people tell me it, I have, like, business wise, we found an access point that was set to the same SSID, because at one point they moved controllers and they didn't realize they had one extra. But this was a company with over 300 access points, and it was hard to find, but did find eventually the one other access point that didn't get adopted that was still broadcasting it. So it's not that I've never seen it, but I've not seen it on a normal system. So it's not something I run into. Well, unless it's a legit problem. They are good, but don't have a main controller, as in what the Unify has, where I can have site magic stuff. Oh, okay. I'm assuming you're talking about the Grandstream. Oh, okay. You're talking about the Protect Tele fireboxes with PF Sense. Yeah, those work well. PF Sense is still, the 2.8 is in beta right now. So they're still updating the CE version. I would like to back my TrueNAS up to another system. I don't want to go cloud. Any recommendations? The best option is truly running another TrueNAS. That is the easiest option out there. So I don't know what other option you would be looking for. But having a second TrueNAS, easiest way to back up TrueNAS is with another TrueNAS. The other options, I know you don't want to go cloud, but they do have the True Cloud backup. That is an option that's reasonable. You encrypt before send. Therefore, you're not worried about the cloud people, but having your data. But the other side is that and I've done a video on this topic using rsync. You can back up your NAS to a Synology as well. So if you already have a Synology, great. Or if you plan on buying one, awesome. But if you're going, well, I'm trying to do a budget build, you can find an older system that you can convert to a TrueNAS server, throw a few drives in it, and use it as your backup. By the way, and I've done a video on this, you can use Tailscale between two sites for backup. So you don't have to have a VPN established like through a firewall or anything like that. You can set up Tailscale. It'll take care of the routing for you and set it up so TrueNAS can talk to both systems. Does TrueNAS or TrueNAS require snapshots first? They require snapshots always. And the reason why is the way ZFS works. ZFS sends a snapshot of the data. So you can't just say I'm backing it up using ZFS replication. You have to pick a point in time when you want the data to be sent. That point in time, that static point, is we do a snapshot of a ZFS data set, and then we're sending the snapshot. You're always sending a snapshot. You're never sending the actual live data. So yes, it always starts with a snapshot would be the way to describe that. Yeah, I just wish there was an alternative to the active backup for business. So now that's one of the reasons I have a Synology. Like for when I did the video comparing TrueNAS and Synology, my answer is I have both. I know that's not everybody's budget, but active backup for business is amazing, and I use it. I use it to back up my Windows computers because I have a Windows gaming laptop, and that's how I back it up because it is truly the best way to do it. Yeah, backing up your TrueNAS with another TrueNAS is easy. I've done several videos on ZFS replication. ZFS replication is, take your data from here and replicate it over there. It's the most efficient way to do it. It's how I back up all of my data for my videos, all my personal data, and everything else of ZFS replication. It's absolutely awesome. Hey, Lawrence, how's it going? The fam are reporting on a little more latency for my DreTech and home server are up. I'm running ideas how to keep them happy. Latency when my DreTech and my home server are up. I mean, are you pulling a bunch of data that's causing the latency? I guess I don't understand where the latency is or what the problem exactly is. No, snapshots are... ZFS is a really interesting file system, and snapshots are one of those incredibly complicated and brilliantly engineered pieces of ZFS. So your delta of how much data, snapshots themselves don't take data, but as you keep writing data and you have a snapshot, that snapshot is a point in time, and every change after that snapshot accumulates data. So if I make 10 gigs of changes after the snapshot, the differential is going to be 10 gigs. So it's not that the snapshot takes any data, it's that all data after snapshot. But as you expire snapshots, you can set a lifetime on them in TrueNAS. And you can say, do a snapshot every day and delete them after a week. So you will only take as much data as you changed in a week. That's the maximum amount of data. I don't know how much data you're changing in a week. A lot of people, we have clients, and even myself, for example, I have a pretty large data set in my archive, but it's very unchanging. My archive slowly gets added to for when I retire. I take videos out of my production going, I did this video. I'm not going to, maybe I want it in the future, but I don't need it. And it moves over to the archive. And so there's a differential change in that archive when that snapshot occurs going, well, the archive just got bigger. And so I only keep, a couple of weeks of snapshots in my archive. And after a couple of weeks, if I don't add anything to it, snapshots take up no room again. So snapshots are really great for that feature, but they give you points in time to restore to as well in case there's ever an incident. When encrypting backups, it's a good way to store the keys. Password managers are wonderful. Whether you use something like Bitwarden, which I think is solid and great, or you're going, no, I prefer a single thing to host myself. KeePass is definitely a good option. Either one of those places are great. Make sure you have those backed up. Make sure you know how to restore those in case of catastrophic failure, because if you only have it in KeePass and you encrypt the KeePass database, you have no way to get that without decrypting this. Well, now you have a problem. This is why tabletops are such a good thing to do, where you walk through the scenario. And what you want to do is make sure going, crap, I don't have a way to restore my KeyPass database because the password for the data set that contained it is also in the KeyPass. So make sure you have backups of that KeyPass on something you can restore without having the password to that. That's just part of the process that is often overlooked. We had a customer that we had to tell them, well, they fired their IT company and called us because they couldn't get the data back. And I also could not get the data back. And what the previous IT person had done was create a text document on the server with the encryption string. And when the server, the building literally caught fire, the server was destroyed, but no one had a copy of that file. So we had the login for the backup. We were able to reset the password, and we had no decryption key to decrypt the data because it was only the IT person fully admitted. They talked to me and I'm like, yeah, nothing. I don't know what to do. We saved that on the desktop of the server and didn't think about it. Have you ever implemented a point-to-point connection between TrueNAS server pairs specifically to remove replication backup traffic from the rest of the network? I haven't done a dedicated point-to-point. Usually it's just VPN, but I never, the need has not arisen that I've had to, like, if you're talking about like wireless point-to-point, we haven't done that. The only thing that my RMM system allows me to keep alive on it using LogMe and Resolve to monitor it. I'm missing some context there. Feels old. I was part of the Open Solaris project that was from 2005. Yeah, Open Solaris. That's been a minute. That has been a minute for sure. I never have enough water. I should bring like 2 glasses of water down here. My voice gets hoarse from talking, I think. But I might wind it down here because it's nice out and I need to go do some. Well, I don't need to. I want to go do some things outside and enjoy the nice weather. So thank you all for joining me on this live stream. This was definitely fun. Let me know over at forums.lawrencesystems.com if you'd like to engage with me there. That's a good place to have a talk if you have some video requests. I also, where did it go? I'm trying to find the stupid banner for it. Banners. There we go. Is the Homelab at lawrencesystems.com. Where is that at? Oh, I should fix this. Hold on. Or not. It's decided not to switch. Well, I can't show it. Homelab at lawrencesystems.com is where you can reach me. Some people have been emailing and I do reply. Sometimes it takes me a day or two, but I do reply to the emails. I'm an inbox 0 kind of person, so definitely do that. But if you want to email me, homelab at lawrencesystems.com is an easy place to find me. Always love hearing from you. I got plenty of more videos in store. And yeah, that's about it. I got some. I'm gonna go outside and touch grass, as they say, or whatever to do. Actually, I got to clean up the yard. So technically, I'll be literally touching grass because there's some yard cleanup I need to do. So, all right, thanks everyone, and take care.